Am I the jerk for deleting my son's Minecraft world? I have two children, a 9-year-old son and a 6-year-old daughter. My son had a Minecraft world where he built quite an impressive castle on an island, which he was very proud to show me. Since school was cancelled, he has had issues with waking up on time. He is supposed to wake up at 7 each morning, but for the past month, he has been sleeping in until 9 or 10. I always set an alarm for him, but he sleeps right through it. I don't wake him up because waking himself up is a skill that he needs to learn. I told him about 2 weeks ago that there are going to be consequences for him if he continues to sleep in every morning. At first he understood and was waking up on time each morning, but for the past week or so, he has fallen back into old habits. I told him yesterday that this was his final warning. Today he slept in until 11, so I followed through with my warning and went on the computer and deleted his favorite Minecraft world. I also took away the computer privileges for the next month. When I told him, he started screaming and crying. He told me that he spent a whole year working on that world, and he is very distraught that he's never going to see it again. He's been crying and sobbing throughout the day and has refused to eat any of his meals.
Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Elena. I'd like to thank you so much for joining me today. As you just heard, I just read the text of a very famous Am I the Butthole Reddit post. I'm kind of late to the party, but I guess better late than never, and I kind of just wanted to talk about my thoughts on the whole issue. The original poster, he never actually came back. It's been about 20 something days, but he never responded after his initial post, so I don't know what ended up happening with the whole story, but I still wanted to put my 2 cents into the pot. So here we go. If you listen to the text, although it's really short, you can feel that the son was very proud of his creation. And don't we usually want to share the things that mean a lot to us with the people that matter a lot to us? I can't help feel that the father destroying the child's world specifically was just so petty, and it was a complete betrayal. It's like he was targeting a weak spot of his child. The father expected his son to know how important waking up was to him without actually communicating effectively to the child. He just expected a 9-year-old to know and to have this information already. He said that waking up early was a good life skill, but skills aren't things you just automatically have. They are taught. And he didn't teach his son this one. He just ordered him and silently watched, beating his time. The lesson he wanted to teach his child might have been a serious one, but he didn't indicate that to the boy. He just expected him to follow, and then he waited throughout the week, and then he just watched, and then he probably just the boy just probably thought that it wasn't that serious, because intention and tone matter. So you say do something, but you have to, like, if the boss says to do something, people need leadership, right? When you want something done, you have to indicate the level of seriousness. That's why we have, like, when you go to war, there's like DEFCON 1 and 2, and there's levels of seriousness. So even for children, we need to know how serious things are. So sometimes your parents will say something to you, but they're not super serious about it. They might be joking about it. So he probably didn't think it was serious because his father didn't really go or didn't enforce it. He didn't talk about it again. He just waited. And then all of a sudden he escalated from 0 to 100 with saying this is the final warning. Except that he didn't give previous warnings. Okay, so yes, he said you have to wake up, but he didn't make it seem that serious. Like, based on the text, it didn't seem like it was that serious. People always want to think that because they know something, everyone else automatically knows it. Like, you will see this, anybody who's ever worked in retail will know this intimately. If you've ever worked on a cash register, you know this. People automatically assume, this is an example, if they're holding a card in their hand, let's say you have a machine and it needs to know if it's a debit machine or a credit machine, a debit card or a credit card. People already know what kind of card they have. They will automatically assume that you know what kind of card they have. It's because they already know what it is, so they just assume that you know. It's this thing that we have. It's like, because we have the knowledge, we just assume everybody else have the same knowledge. Can you imagine how crazy the world would be if we all just knew what everybody else knew? Like, if you knew what I was thinking, that would just be crazy. But I noticed this when I was working at my job. It would happen so many times. I'd be like, what kind of card is that? They'd be like, oh, it's a this card. I'm just like, you're showing me the back of a card. They all look the same. I can't tell what it is. Some people would get so upset with me because I'm like, ma'am or sir, I cannot tell what it is. Just a plastic card. What is it? Like, I cannot tell what it is. I can't intuit it by looking into your soul and then having it bounce back into my brain. I cannot tell. So the father probably just assumes that the son automatically knows because he has that knowledge. So he assumes somebody knows. If the father wanted to discipline his child, he should have scaled it reasonably. The punishment was too extreme. You don't destroy a child's precious possessions. If you want to punish them, you can't do it that way. It's emotional abuse, and people might say that that's not important, but it's lasting, and it can manifest as trauma as they grow up. Parents forget that kids grow up and they remember these things. These same parents forget all the things that their own parents did and they thought were unfair when they were children, and then they do the same thing and then they forget it. It's an ironic situation. Like, don't you remember when you were a child? Do you remember the thoughts you had in your head? Do you not think your child is having those same thoughts? They're not just like a random blank. They're not like a person who doesn't think and feel. They're having thoughts. Like, you know, when he's crying, he's thinking and he's coming up with ideas, and those ideas are making up his personality. Like, it's very important. The father, he had an opportunity to guide, but instead he chose to punish. The parent's role is to be the mentor, not the master. But I don't know why. That's just how we teach people. People keep trying to dominate their kids and they try to force their will on them. It should be you guide them, you teach them, you show them the way. You don't punish them and traumatize them. Luckily, slowly the role of the mentor is starting to become the norm, which is great, because that's why all these adults are so traumatized. Their parents are like dominating them and forcing them and punishing them and treating them badly. You keep forgetting these kids are gonna grow up and that trauma is not gonna go away, because the trauma happens when they're kids. It's formative trauma. It sticks because it gets stuck in their foundations. Like, people, it seems like a little thing because you're older, so you know how to brush it away, but they're little, they have very few experiences, so every experience that they have is a valuable one, and even a negative one, especially a negative one, stays with them. Children are blank slates. They come to earth with literally nothing. They don't know anything. They learn by testing boundaries. It's the job of the mentor to teach them. It's to teach them, when they test boundaries, what is right and what is wrong. So what is testing boundaries, right? It's basically teaching them, or it's basically learning what you can and what you can't do, right? When a child looks at you and he throws his food on the floor, he's doing it on purpose. He wants to learn what he can and can't do. It's like a scale. Where is the balance? So they do these things and they look at you to see what you will do, what's your reaction, and that's how they learn. You know when you see somebody touch their face and you automatically touch your face? We copy each other, and children are masters of this. That's how they learn. Because I think back of the things that I did when I was a child, when I didn't know better, because when you get older, the older you get, you learn better. But when I think back of some of the things that I did, I get so scared, like my heart pounds, because I'm just like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. That was so dangerous. And there was one time I got in the back of a van. I hope my mother never hears this. I lived in the Caribbean and I had to walk. I was going to grocery shopping and I was carrying many bags, and it was so heavy. And I was waiting for the bus, but the bus wasn't coming. We didn't have a standardized bus system. And so I decided to walk, and it was a long walk, and the bags were heavy, and I was just like, this is ridiculous. So I decided to hitchhike. I was like 12 years old. There was a van. It's basically the what you would call a rape van. Oh, that's a bad word. Hopefully, whatever. Nobody's listening to this. It's basically that. I decided I put out my thumb. They stopped. In the back, whole bunch of men smoking like weed and like my brain was like, are you sure you want to go inside that van? But then another part was like, yeah, but those bags are heavy. I don't want to carry those bags. Do you know what I did? 12 years old. Nobody knows where I am. There was no other vans on the road. No cameras. It's the Caribbean. There's like no surveillance. Nobody would know where I was. I went into that van. 12 years old. So if these people decided they were gonna take me and do whatever, I went into the van. Do you know what the man said to me inside that van? They said they stopped for me because what I was doing was very dangerous. They said that I basically got a lecture all the way to my stop. So they basically took me to where the bus would have stopped for me, and they just lectured me the entire way. They were like, you should not be doing this. You don't know who the person is in the van. You just enter the van with random men. They were Rastafarians, so they were religious men. Like they were true Rastafarians, so they were religious men, so they wouldn't have. I didn't know that. I just didn't want to carry the bags. It was gonna be like an hour of walking, and I didn't want. But think about that. Blank slates. Children don't know, so they test boundaries so they can learn. That is our job as mentors. So the job is to teach them, and who better to teach you than your parents? They're supposed to love you. Of course, it all depends on the child's personality, but you don't hit them, and you certainly don't cause them trauma, lasting or otherwise. Children should feel safe testing their boundaries. The younger a child is, the more these things stay with them. These reactions form their foundations and their core beliefs, and it becomes harder to change as they grow older, because the more they are cemented with these repeated behaviors, the firmer the child accepts them as facts, even though it might not be true. Like, for example, a person who has low self-esteem, that could be because of something that happened as a child. Maybe they had a parent who kept telling them they were useless or not good enough, even though this person is actually a really great person, because they were told this in those formative years. They believe it absolutely, as strongly as they believe that when they step on the ground will hold them up. They believe it that strongly. Like, it's crazy. We need to be very cautious with how we treat children. These things, they stay with them. In the case of this 9-year-old, he was testing his father's boundaries for sure. Like, look at his behavior. If you realize that children test boundaries, you can see it immediately in their behavior. He was testing his father's boundaries for sure. His father said, wake up at 7. He chose not to. He could have woken up. He's done it before for school. He's done it many times, but he chose not to. He wanted to learn what would happen if he didn't. He could have woken up. He had an alarm. Alarms are designed to annoy you into waking up. That alarm went off. He chose not to wake up because he wanted to learn what would happen when you test the boundaries of the mentor. But what he ended up learning was, if you say no to dad, dad will destroy my things. Or maybe something else. Who knows what his brain might come up with? I don't know how his brain works. It might have interpreted that into something even more aggressive. It definitely wouldn't be something positive. Adults need 7 to 9 hours of sleep, but children need somewhere between 10 to 12 hours. That is why they're usually so tired in the morning for school. Sometimes they even sleep at school. So why does a 9-year-old need to wake up early anyway? He's a kid. He's going to be a kid for only a tiny portion of his life. Like, think about all the adults that are like, oh, I wish I was back to being a kid, right? So why are we trying to force these kids to grow up so soon? They're only gonna be a kid for this amount of time. Let them have fun as kids. Leave them alone. Let them enjoy this very small period of time in their life where they get to have no responsibilities, where they can sleep in. Nobody's judging them. There's no pressure. They're safe and warm and protected. They don't have to worry about where food is coming from. Just let them be. Why you gotta be teaching them about waking up because of the alarm? He's 9. What does he need to wake up because of the alarm? There's no school. Where is he going? To work? What does he have to do to wake up at 7? He has a job? Like, leave him alone. Let him sleep. Not only that, but we're in the middle of a global pandemic, which he probably doesn't fully understand, but he definitely feels because everyone is so stressed out about it. Kids are super sensitive to emotions of adults because at that age, they're learning social cues. Remember, they're blank slates. Let him chill out and not worry about why everyone is so tense right now. The dad needs to apologize to his son. It's as simple as that. If he's willing to take on the role of the mentor, then he should teach his son that when you are wrong, it's alright to apologize. He needs to talk to his son and try to explain the point that he had been trying to make and why he thought that it was important, because people rarely do things without a reason. This goes back to the point that just because we know something, we assume others know it as well. He then needs to try and recover what he destroyed. Show his son that he's putting in the effort to try. Include his son in the recovery process even. They can do the research together. And then even if they're able to recover the kid's project, they should start a new one together. Show some interest in his son's hobbies. His son went through the effort of bringing this project to him. It took a year to build. A year to a 9-year-old is like eternity. And he callously deleted it. Like, that's just that's so horrible. I don't even play Minecraft. I don't even know that much about it. It's just the whole idea that this child brought something that mattered so much to him and he just deleted. That's horrible. That's just so horrible. He might not have meant it that way, but it's definitely how it came across. The evidence is so clear. The whole internet is against him. People wrote freaking articles about this. And most importantly, the fact that his son was so upset that he didn't even want to eat. You know how much it must affect a kid for him not to eat? That's crazy. And even if his son forgives him, even if he can recover the whole Minecraft world, even if he returns the computer and he apologizes, he can't take away the actions. He needs to completely overwrite it. He needs to do something bigger, because that child, even if he says, I forgive you, there will always be moments in time where he will have doubts. That moment where his father deleted this thing that matters to him will always come back and say, does my father love me? He needs that. He needs something to overwrite it that will come and that will squash that doubt down. So he needs to build with his father that world. He will need to show his son that he truly and unquestioningly loves and values him, that he made a mistake. And people can talk and whatever. It's all about action. And the only way to do that is to take that thing that created the divide between the two of them in the first place and use it to bring them back together. And by working together to build something that his son obviously loves, it will demonstrate that he wants to understand. Even if the project takes another year, and as long as he sticks to it and he doesn't start to slack off like sometimes adults tend to do, like when the immediacy of it starts to wear off, he'll start to like put it off, or other things will start to become important. As long as he doesn't do that, he can repair the damage. Otherwise, in the back of his son's mind, he will always wonder, what else might his father destroy of his? And it might come up again randomly in like 20 years. Like they might be having a random topic and then his father might accidentally drop a book. It'll be like, so you're gonna destroy my book too? It'll just come up randomly. So anyway, that was what I wanted to discuss. Thank you so much for listening. I have this thing I just really hate when children are hurt. We need to protect children because they become the adults, and that's why so many adults are so hurt, because it starts as children, and it starts with the careless actions of the adults who don't realize that the little things that they do have such big impact on the development of their kids and the children around them. Anyway, thank you so much. I hope you got value from this. I will see you in the next one. If you like it, please take some time to subscribe. Bye.